represent a beacon. I thank both of you for coming. Okay, we will now proceed right on to panel 2. Got to get new signs up. Okay, we're very fortunate this morning to have as our second panel today the top federal officials in charge of the World Trade Center investigation and of U.S. domestic counterterrorism strategy and operations. The Honorable William Sessions was appointed director of the FBI in 1987 after a long and distinguished career as a jurist. He served as chief judge for the Western District of Texas and as the United States attorney for that district. Before that, he was at the Justice Department as chief of the Government Operations Section, Criminal Division, and in private practice. And he is accompanied by Neil Gallagher. He's chief of the counterterrorism section of the FBI, and I want to personally thank you, as I know our whole panel does, Director Judge Sessions, for being here and being available for our questions before and after this event. You have been right there. We also have joining the director, Wayne Gilbert and Harry Branton, who are senior FBI officials. Also with us from the FBI, of course, is James Fox, the FBI's assistant director in charge of New York. I know Mr. Fox well. Have taken some tours of his operation with him, and we in New York are lucky that the FBI has assigned him to our metropolitan area. He has a long service with the FBI, and it's included a post as special agent in charge of the Foreign Counterintelligence Soviet Division in the New York City office. We're also joined by Director Stephen Higgins. He was appointed director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms in 1983. He's been with ATF 32 years, since 1961. Most of this time he served in management, been recognized frequently for his stellar leadership and his outstanding efforts in the war against armed career criminals. And I think the whole panel joins me, Director Higgins, in expressing our deep sorrow over the recent deaths of the 4 ATF agents in Texas. Our prayers are with you. We've been with each other on several occasions since that, and I know how heavily it weighs on you, and it again shows your dedication to the men and women in ATF that you lead. Our hopes are also there, of course, that the situation will be resolved shortly. Director Higgins is accompanied by Charlie Thompson. He's the special agent in charge of the New York field office of ATF, and again, someone I've had a long acquaintanceship with. Also here from ATF is James Brown. He is the chief of the ATF's explosives division. We had a number of questions about explosives, and I don't think we could find a better witness than Mr. Brown. We also have, I guess the order is a little, state and justice are getting along very well, at least on this panel, because we also have in between the Justice Department witnesses, Ambassador Thomas McNamara. He was named the State Department's U.S. Coordinator for Counterterrorism in 1992. After serving as U.S. Ambassador to Colombia, it was spelled here as the university, but we know it's the country. Sometimes we think the university may need an ambassador too, I guess. He joined the National Security Council. He's also served as the Special Assistant to the President for National Security Affairs, as the State Department Deputy Assistant Secretary for Politico-Military Affairs, and as the National Security Council's Director of Counterterrorism and Narcotics. Well, I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for taking the time away from your many duties to be with us, because the knowledge represented at this table in terms of the area of terrorism, I think, would be virtually unequaled. We're extremely interested, of course, not only to hear an update of the status of the investigation in terms of the general facts you can tell us, as has been mentioned time and time again. We are not here to try anyone, to prejudge anyone, or to impede your investigation by trying to elicit facts from you that would. but also, of course, answer the number of general questions about the possibility of increasing terrorism in the United States, and most importantly of all, what we can do about it here today. Judge Sessions, if you would please begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I brought before the committee two books, which I think you may have in your materials up there. I hope they're of help to you in understanding both the FBI's counterterrorism program and terrorism generally in the United States and the efforts that are made to deal with it. I regret that such a devastating incident has brought me here today. As you noted, that I'm accompanied by Assistant Director James Fox of the New York's FBI division, the New York division of the FBI. Mr. Fox is an assistant director who is in charge of the investigation of suspected terrorist bombing at the World Trade Center. The FBI, as you know, is the lead federal agency in investigating terrorist acts inside the United States. We have pursued this particular investigation as an act of terrorism from early in the investigation. Accordingly, the FBI has primary federal jurisdiction. Utilizing the concept, as Commissioner Kelly discussed, of a joint terrorism task force, the FBI has worked with and coordinated all aspects of this investigation with the New York City Police Department. Furthermore, the FBI and the New York City Police Department have received invaluable assistance from a wide range of federal and local agencies. Of particular note, of course, is the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, BATF, which has greatly assisted in the crime scene examination. Also of notable assistance have been the New York State Police, the Port Authority Police, the U.S. Secret Service, the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the Department of State Diplomatic Security, and the United States Customs Service. This investigation has been and continues to be a coordinated effort utilizing the full resources of U.S. law enforcement and the entire federal, state, and local communities. Because of the FBI's responsibility, I'd like to make some preliminary comments and then give you a brief overview of our investigation to date. I will also address certain issues that I've heard raised during the course of the investigation. First, I would emphasize that much investigation remains to be done. In many investigations, but particularly in this one, methodical, careful, and often time-consuming investigation and analysis is absolutely required. The FBI, the ATF, the New York Police Department, and all other agencies assisting in the investigation have brought to the investigation literally hundreds of professionals who understand this process. They are working around the clock to solve the bombing and, most importantly, to ensure a successful prosecution. As professional law enforcement officers, we are also keenly aware that disclosure of investigative facts prior to trial could impede the investigation and also adversely affect the prosecution. In this respect, the bombing at the World Trade Center is no different than any other case. Because of this, I am confident that the committee does understand that there are some operational and evidentiary aspects that cannot and will not be discussed. From the public's perspective, I recognize that this case is different. The target of the bombing, the tragic loss of life, the specter of terrorism referred to by the committee members this morning, and the resulting anxiety that has been experienced by some of our fellow citizens. All of these fuel an understandable desire for information to explain this vicious act. I, and I'm confident the rest of my panel members, will be as forthcoming as this operational concern permits. Let me begin by stating firmly that I believe that one effective weapon to deter future acts such as this is to aggressively investigate and successfully prosecute those who are responsible for this cowardly deed. That is our objective, from which we will not waver. The FBI has assigned hundreds of people, including seasoned investigators, forensic and bomb experts, computer specialists and analysts, and many other disciplines that an incident of this magnitude dictates. We are fortunate to have such a wide variety of disciplines and expertise. In addition, we have brought into the mix our long-standing role and experience in dealing worldwide with terrorism. The FBI's participation as an observer at the European Trevi Conference on Terrorism and with international organizations, as well as the long-standing international relationships, give us a unique intelligence base from which to build. Our international presence could prove to be invaluable in this case. All agencies are dedicated to solving the case as quickly as possible. Mr. Chairman, let me give you a brief overview of the major events in this case. What happened initially, of course, at the Trade Center has already been described in detail. The first priority was the safety of all the individuals in the complex, and I would like to take this opportunity to join with others who have expressed it in magnificent terms, commending the men and women, both public and private citizens, who have braved obvious dangers to assist their fellow citizens during the course of this tragedy. Their heroic example stands as a shining testament for all of us. Perhaps even more important, it strikes me as a fitting first response of those who might be testing our resolve to deal with this kind of bombing. Certainly the City of New York, its many agencies and citizens that responded, deserve all the special attention and recognition that we can give them. On that first day, the FBI, the ATF, and the New York City Police Department began the arduous task of securing the scene. The collection of the evidence necessary to determine the cause of the explosion began almost immediately. Experts in explosives, chemicals, and metallurgy from the FBI, ATF, and New York City Police Department were very quickly assembled. The FBI's Rapid Start Team was sent from the FBI headquarters to New York City to provide the computer capability necessary to administer and support a major investigation such as this. In New York City, a task force was quickly formed comprised of FBI agents and the New York City Police Department detectives who were members of the FBI's existing Joint Terrorism Task Force. The task force referred to by Commissioner Kelly, of course, has been in existence for 13 years, and it was immediately supplemented with the experts from numerous other agencies that I've just mentioned. While this necessary organizational work was occurring, the most important focus of the investigation was the scene of the explosion itself. Because of safety factors, it remains very dangerous and very difficult to process that scene and to gather evidence. On Sunday, February 28th, we concluded that we had a sufficient factual base and information to support the forensic conclusion that the explosion had been caused by a bomb. If I might, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a point here that's been referred to by several of the committee members. There are many reporters, academics, and private consultants who are reporting their own conclusions with result to certain aspects of this investigation, such as the early report that now seems so obvious that the explosion was caused by a bomb. Much of their dialogue appears to be based on what I would respectfully refer to as educated speculation. Quite frankly, as investigators, we also engage in this type of analysis in order to develop theories and scenarios which might explain the evidence or provide focus and direction for the investigation. It is done internally, and it is done, and though it can be of great assistance in an investigation, it, of course, is not evidence. I make this distinction because I do not believe it is appropriate for me, as the director of the FBI, to publicly speculate or to deal in the rhetoric of possibilities. As a result of the evidence developed in the investigation, on Thursday, March 4th at 10:28 a.m., Mohammed Salema was arrested by members of the Joint Terrorist Task Force. A complaint and affidavit were subsequently filed charging Salema with violations of Title 18 United States Code, Section 844, involving the destruction by fire or explosive of a building used in interstate or foreign commerce. Salema was arraigned before a United States magistrate and is currently being held without bond and without bail pending trial. I believe the subcommittee has a copy of the complaint and the affidavit in support. Because of the pendency of the prosecution, further comment by me, I think, would be inappropriate. To date, there have also been several searches conducted pursuant to court order. While I cannot be more specific at this time, I can say that items of potential evidentiary value have been seized and are currently being examined. During one of those searches on March 5th, 1993, an individual named Ibrahim El Ghabrani engaged in activities which caused him to be arrested and charged with obstruction of justice. He has also been arraigned as being held, again, without bond pending trial. We continue to aggressively follow where the evidence takes us and will pursue whatever develops from these leads. It is premature to reach any conclusions beyond what has already been discussed. There is still much that we do not know. Since I became director of the FBI in 1987, there have been many complex and difficult investigations. I have always been struck by the amazing ability of our law enforcement agencies to meet those challenges and by the FBI's ability to conduct incredibly complex investigations. This case, of course, is no different. I can assure you that to the extent humanly possible, every relevant avenue is being aggressively explored in our attempt to determine the full scope of the criminal activity which caused this tragedy, and I am confident that it will be solved. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address two other concerns.